Welcome, fellow seekers of wisdom, to another enlightening journey through the annals of ancient teachings. Today we delve into the profound encounter between the Buddha and Mahakasyapa, unraveling the threads of a narrative that illustrates the depth of the Buddha's insight. As we navigate the intricate paths of this shared history, we witness the transformative power of wisdom, a common alliance that binds these spiritual luminaries as we explore the origins of their connection and the pivotal moments that shape the destiny of Mahakasyapa, guided by the profound teachings of the Buddha. This showcases the profound wisdom of the Buddha. I believe that as you read further, you will come to understand. Shortly after the Buddha's enlightenment, there were no monastic communities. His first endeavor was to liberate 5 Kastulas, and on one was Mahakasyapa. Mahakasyapa was the Buddha's mentor during his childhood and youth, as the Buddha was under the guidance of his father King Suddhodana. However, Devadatta, an ascetic and cousin of the Buddha, had the intention of leading the Buddha down a misguided path. He influenced Mahakasyapa into embracing strict ascetic practices. When King Suddhodana learned of this, he intervened and ensured that the Buddha's son Rona would not follow in those austere footsteps. Devadatta's influence, however, remained strong. Mahakasyapa initially supported the idea of accepting new followers, considering that the Buddha had fully achieved his own path. Yet the Buddha unexpectedly abandoned his previous ascetic practices and joined the company of Mahakasyapa and 4 other companions. It was only a few days after they began traveling together that Mahakasyapa attained enlightenment. The Buddha shared the profound fruits of his enlightenment, starting with Mahakasyapa. However, this was not limited to teachings. It extended to a deep karma and connection between Mahakasyapa and the Buddha. Buddha and his disciples parted ways, and the 5 companions became monastics following their enlightenment. Later, the Buddha encountered Mahakasyapa once again and welcomed him as a disciple. Mahakasyapa expressed that it was unnecessary to accept new followers, but the Buddha had already chosen to share the sacred teachings more broadly. This marked the inception of the Sangha, the monastic community. The Buddha's journey continued as he crossed dense forest fields and rivers. He walked by day and rested beneath the forest canopy by night. His destination was not Varanasi to meet King Bimbisara as initially planned, but a small village called Praguravaragam nestled in the forest. It was a village that the Buddha attained profound realization. During his time in the village, children, particularly a young girl named Kanakamuni and his sister Padmavati, often visited the Buddha. They provided him with food, clothing, and other necessities. They had a heartfelt connection with the Buddha. However, this is a story for another time. The Buddha bid farewell to his disciples and left the village to head eastward. His goal is not to meet King Bimbisara, but to arrive at a place called Yasodhara in the area of Chavaka. Meanwhile, the girl Kanakamuni was following a path of virtue and devotion, and she had brought her friends to visit the Buddha. Each person was filled with joy upon reuniting with the Buddha. Each individual shared their own experiences as they sat in the presence of the Buddha. Before departing, the Buddha instructed the villagers to take good care of them. By then, Kanakamuni and her companions were mature, responsible, able to take care of themselves. The children expressed to the Buddha their desire to meet him again, and the Buddha promised that when he reached the age of 20, he would return to accept their offerings. It had been more than a year since the Buddha's initial visit to the village, and upon his return, they had a profound discussion with Kanakamuni filled with love and respect. The second day's dawn saw the children visiting the Buddha again along with their families, creating an atmosphere of great joy. The meeting with Kanakamuni and her friends left the Buddha deeply moved. As he crossed the Niranian River towards the east, he encountered Mahakasyapa, who would be eager to meet the Buddha. The Buddha embraced Mahakasyapa and his sincere disciples. It was a moment of spiritual union. The Buddha's disciples, who had now achieved enlightenment, were parting ways, heading to follow their individual paths and sharing the Dharma with others. The Buddha ventured ahead alone, crossing dense forests and walking through villages. It was in these villages that he had the opportunity to provide guidance to those seeking the path of enlightenment. The Mahastan, dressed in robes made from tree bark, found food and clothing supplied by villagers. In this way, the Buddha Mahakasyapa and their disciples each embarked on their unique journeys. After parting with the monastics, the Buddha continued his solitary quest, crossing the rugged terrain of the Velavana forest, known as the Bamboo Grove. The path was grueling, but the Buddha's mind was resolute and he pressed forward, his destination clear. This marked the beginning of the Buddha's profound journey in the forest as he continued to inspire and guide those he encountered along the way. This was the Buddha's second turning of the wheel of Dharma, bringing his wisdom and compassion to the world. In Buddhism, each of these three brothers had their own beliefs regarding the fundamental nature of the cosmos. The list of young Tathagata, along with his 300 disciples, resided on the banks of the Niranjana River, approximately a day's journey north. The great sage Vajira Tathagata and his 200 disciples, on the other hand, lived in the vicinity of Vajira Tathagata's master for the purpose of meeting him. Though Tathagata had aged, he still possessed vitality, intelligence, and wisdom. When he saw the humility of this young teacher, he was immediately filled with respect and welcomed him with the highest reverence. Tathagata requested the teacher to sit under a tree outside, and the two engaged in profound discussions. Tathagata was astonished by the teacher's profound understanding of the teachings of the fire and the teachings of the pine. After listening to the teacher's interpretation of these profound teachings, Tathagata realized that his understanding was incomplete. What further amazed him was that the teacher not only comprehended what Tathagata thought he knew, but also had a deep understanding of the rituals and symbolism within the teachings of Agama and the teachings of Peaches. After the teacher's explanations, Tathagata realized his prior understanding was inadequate. Later in the afternoon, Tathagata accepted the teacher's invitation to dine together. The teacher placed his outer robe carefully and neatly to serve as a mat, showing respect for the meal. Tathagata was deeply moved by the teacher's peaceful and dignified demeanor. At night, they continued their profound conversation. At that time, the teacher asked Tathagata, "Master Tathagata, can you explain how the worship of fire can lead people to liberation?" In Tathagata's own, it's not easy to answer. He knew that for this young teacher, a superficial surface-level response would not suffice. Therefore, Tathagata began by explaining why fire is considered the fundamental element of the universe. He explained that the source of fire is the great celestial realm, and within the rituals of the teachings of fire, the perpetual holy fire brand symbolizing the great celestial realm. In the teachings of Agama, there is a description of the fire worship ceremony. Tathagata further explained that fire represents life itself. Without fire, life cannot exist. Fire is the source of illumination, and also the source of the sun's power. It sustains life, provides warmth, and dispels darkness. Fire enables the cooking of food, and in the end it allows beings to return to the great celestial realm. Fire is in essence a symbol of the great celestial realm. The teacher also mentioned the fire god Agni. Agni is just one of the many representations of the great celestial realm. In the fire worship ceremonies, Agni is often depicted as having two heads. One head symbolizes the practical role of fire in daily life, while the other symbolizes the self-sacrifice and the return to the source of life. To achieve liberation, Tathagata explained that one must follow a disciplined way of life and engage in different rituals and diligence. However, he also expressed his concern about those who misuse their authority and exploit others in the name of the rituals and ceremonies, astonishing the reputation of traditional Dhamma teachings. The teacher continued the discussion by asking Tathagata, "I hear those who believe that water was the fundamental element of life, and that only through water purification could one attain union with the great celestial realm." Tathagata hesitated for a moment, remembering countless individuals redeemed in the sacred rivers hoping to purify themselves. He realized that water alone could not truly lead people to liberation. Tathagata explained that water flows downward and only fire rises upwards. Our brothers rise to the sun astral. The teacher added that the clouds in the sky were also a form of water, and they could ascend. In fact, mist and fog were merely water in vapor form. Clouds and smoke eventually returned to a liquid state. In this context, the teacher was emphasizing that water had its own upward movements and transformations similar to fire. The ultimate goal of liberation should not be limited to one particular element, but rather understanding the internet, incarnateness and interdependence of all islands, and their potential to guide individuals towards the path of enlightenment. In Buddhism, it is believed that all things are in a constant state of change within a cycle. What all these things originate from the same fundamental elements, ultimately returning to their very essence. Just like this single leaf in my hand, it is composed of various elements including earth, water, energy, seeds, trees, colors, the sun, time, and space. All these factors collaborate to create the existence of this leaf. If any of these elements were missing, the leaf could not exist. Everything, whether organic or inorganic, exists due to their interdependence. There are no isolated entities. Please find out the rest of story on our next video.